And now the conclusion to the epic three-part saga, I guess. This is a review of the Star Trek Enterprise episode, The Augments. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know the best way to escape a tube that's about to be filled with deadly pathogens, be warned. Spoilers beyond this point. If you've been following this storyline for the previous two episodes, you know that stuff has been happening. You probably expect that more stuff is about to happen. Are you curious as to what that stuff is going to be? Or, pretending this is November 2004 and you're watching its original broadcast, are you starting to wonder what's on Dateline NBC this week? I guess that depends on you, doesn't it? Personally, I don't think I even watched this when it first aired. I'd given up on Enterprise by this point. I have a vague memory of flipping through the channels a week earlier and catching a little bit of Cold Station 12. It was the bit where Malik and Persis are in bed together, and Malik says, "Why shouldn't I lead? Augment should be led by Augment." And I said, nope, and went back to channel surfing. Anyway, here's what happens in this episode. Remember last time when Eric Sung and Malik and the other Augments left Cold Station 12 and Malik rigged all the deadly diseases stored at Cold Station 12 to be released into the air a few minutes after he left? Which is a thing you can do by just pushing a couple of buttons for some reason. And the head scientist was like, the only way to stop this from happening and save all our lives is by climbing this long-ass ladder. So Captain Archer started climbing the ladder. Remember that? Well, Archer's at the top of the ladder, and he moves a few hard drives around at this junction at the top of the ladder, which saves the people in the room at the bottom of the ladder from getting exposed to the diseases, but leaves Archer in the ladder tube still exposed. The diseases are going to be released any second. And even though Archer knew exactly what to do to immediately isolate the room at the bottom, he has no idea how to do the same thing for the part of the station where he's at. Oh no! Fortunately, Archer is the lead protagonist on a Star Trek show, so he knows he can try something completely bonkers to escape, and he'll definitely survive. He calls Enterprise and says, "Hey, T'Pol, I'm about to be exposed to every disease in the universe at once, so I want you to use Enterprise's phasers," sorry, phase cannon, it's a prequel, we're calling it a phase cannon, "to blow a hole in this tube I'm in, and then beam me aboard the ship after I'm exposed to the vacuum of space." T'Pol's like, okay then, and that's what happens. Enterprise blasts a hole in the tube, Archer is blown out into space, they beam him aboard, and we get to see what Scott Bakula would look like playing Jack Frost in a shitty live-action remake of Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July. Cut to the Augments on the Klingon ship they stole back in Part 1, and tensions between Sung and Malik are boiling over already. Malik's like, we don't have to worry about Captain Archer anymore, because before we left, what I did was I killed him. Sung is like, oh God, I am so mad at you right now. Why do you genetically engineered killers who were bred for killing always have to kill people? From now on, no killing unless I say so, or so help me gosh, young man, you will be on timeout. Sung seems to have the situation under control, so he announces to the Augments what their next step will be. They'll set course for a turbulent region of space, which Sung likes to call the Briar Patch. Pause for recognition. And find themselves a nice, quiet planet where they can settle down and grow all those frozen embryos up into more Augments. Malik doesn't like this plan. He thinks that Starfleet will just keep looking for them. They shouldn't run away like Khan and the others aboard the Botany Bay. Pause for recognition. They should take a stand so that they don't have to run and hide anymore. But Sung's like, nah, we're doing the Briar Patch thing. Get to work. Later, Malik goes to Sung's lab and finds him preparing the first series of embryos to be incubated. Malik notices that Sung is tinkering with the DNA of these embryos. He's like, what you doing? And Sung says, I'm adjusting the levels of neurotransmitters that will be in their brains so that they won't have such a strong tendency toward violence and aggression. I just figured out how to do it. Otherwise, I would have done it for you too. Isn't that neat? And Malik's like, yeah, that's great. Enterprise catches up to the Klingon ship and Archer hails Sung like, hey, it's us, pull over or we'll shoot at you a bunch. Sung turns to Malik like, oh, great job killing him. Fortunately, they're still carrying the pilot of that Denobulan shuttle they hijacked in the last episode. So Sung has her shoved back into her shuttle, then ejects the shuttle into the atmosphere of a nearby planet. He tells Archer, you can keep chasing me, or you can stop and rescue her before she dies. It's the classic superhero dilemma. Have fun. Bye. Enterprise stops to rescue the Denobulan pilot, and Sung and the Augments zoom away at warp speed. As Sung supervises repairs in the Klingon engine room, Malik walks up to him like, hey, so I have a plan for how we can get away from Starfleet. Before we left Cold Station 12, I grabbed a bunch of those deadly diseases they were keeping, and I was thinking we should load those diseases into a torpedo and launch that torpedo at a Klingon planet. The pathogens aboard the torpedo would spread all through the atmosphere and kill everyone and everything on it in a few days. When the Klingons find out that humans have destroyed their colony, they'll go to war with Earth for sure, and Starfleet will be so busy fighting the Klingons that we'll be able to get away easy. Wouldn't murdering an entire planet of Klingons just make the Klingons come after us? And then we'd have Starfleet and the Klingons chasing us instead of just Starfleet? On that subject, why aren't the Klingons chasing us? You murdered the crew of this ship and stole it. Shouldn't they be looking for us even harder than Enterprise? I don't know. I guess it doesn't really make sense. So that's a no for my germ warfare genocide plan? That's a no. What happened to you, dude? The man who raised us wouldn't have batted an eye over mass murdering an entire planet. You used to be such a good father, but now you've changed. Sung's refusal to let Malik wipe out a planet full of Klingons is the last straw. Despite the misgivings of Persis, Malik has decided to seize command of the Augments himself. They lock Sung in his quarters and prepare to move ahead with Malik's bioweapon plan. Meanwhile, on Enterprise, another Klingon ship has detected their presence in Klingon space and wants to know what the hell they're doing here. Fortunately, Trip has altered Enterprise's warp signature, so as long as they maintain a far enough distance, they'll appear to be a Klingon ship on sensors. Using the Universal Translator and speaking through audio only, Archer talks to the captain of the other Klingon ship, and they have a conversation that feels like it lasts about a day and a half, that ends with Archer convincing the Klingon captain to leave them alone because they're carrying the Klingon Chancellor home after important negotiations. Archer says, now don't tell your superiors about this, or you'll find yourself the captain of a garbage scow. Pause for recognition. Back on the Klingon ship, Persis visits Sung and says, hey Dad, I'm on your side. Sung tells her that if Malik launches his weapon against the Klingons, it will just make everyone else even more certain of how dangerous Augments are and lead to their destruction. They have to stop Malik, but they can't do it from the ship because Malik has total control. So, Persis helps Sung sneak onto an escape pod and, well, escape. Pretty soon, the escape pod is picked up by Enterprise, and Archer has Sung thrown right back into the brig. Sung tells Archer about Malik's plan to attack the Klingons with the pathogens. He says, we have to stop him, or millions will die. If only Starfleet hadn't arrested me and taken me away from them, maybe they wouldn't have grown up to become ruthless killers. Archer's like, yes, they would have, because it's their nature. They were born bad. They're inherently evil because of their genes. Is that? What you're saying doesn't sound very good. Oh, no. Okay, I see what you're getting at. I'm not saying all people are inherently good or bad based on their genes. Just these particular people who were bred to have the bad genes on purpose. Hope that clears it up. Back to the Klingon ship for more of Days of Our Augments, as Malik and Persis have another scintillating round of meaningful pillow talk, this time about Sung's escape. By the way, how come the shirt Persis wears to bed is nicer than the one she wears to work? If she only has 2 shirts, why doesn't she just switch and wear that one during the day and wear the other one when she goes to bed? Is that against the rules? Do the Augments enforce a Hot Topic only dress code while they're on duty? Or would the other Augments look down on her for not wearing black? Did you see Persis on the bridge with her blue shirt? The one that only has a few holes in it? Who's she trying to impress? Anyway, Malik knows that Persis helped Sung to escape. She pulls a knife on him. They have a fight. Malik wins and he kills her. Thanks for coming, Persis. Although she was Malik's girlfriend, so probably not. As Enterprise pursues the Augments, another Klingon ship shows up and says, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Archer tries the same shtick as last time, but it doesn't work because this Klingon ship just starts shooting at them right away. Sung talks to the Klingon captain, says, "Hey, come on, man, let us go. Take it from me, a human. These humans are cool." That doesn't work. So Archer does a thing where they shoot their grappler at the Klingon ship and fly it around until it rips one of their engines off. Then Enterprise gets back on course to chase down those Augments. They catch up to the Augments right as the bioweapon has been launched at the Klingon colony. Malcolm is able to shoot the pathogen-loaded torpedo down before it can reach the atmosphere. Then, with advice from Sung on where to shoot, they disable the Klingon ship, seriously injuring or killing many of the Augments aboard. Malik is still alive, and for his final act, he decides, fuck it, I'm just doing Wrath of Khan. He crawls over to a computer console and activates the ship's self-destruct mechanism. Sung hails him and says, "Malik, man, you don't want to do this. Some of your brothers and sisters are still alive. Plus, there's the embryos." Malik says, "Nah, there's no place for us anywhere. Better to just die here. See you soon, though. Bye." And then the ship explodes. Well, that's that. The Augments, and especially Malik, are definitely dead. Nothing left to do now but escort Sung back to prison on Earth. Let's just follow him and Archer down their uneventful walk through the corridor and, hey, what the? It's Malik! He's still alive! He sneaked onto the ship somehow, that sneaky sneak. He grabs Sung by the throat and says, "Time to kill you now," but Archer shoots him through the stomach, and as everyone knows, getting shot in the stomach kills you immediately, so Malik drops dead. So, slight hiccup there, but now, that's that! Archer is there when Sung is returned to his prison cell. Before Archer leaves, Sung says, "You know, I've been thinking, genetic engineering ain't where it's at. Humanity can't be perfected, so I'm gonna pivot to cybernetics, artificial life. I probably won't be able to finish the work in my lifetime, but who knows what can be accomplished in another generation or two." Pause for recognition. The end. Hey, did you know this television show is a prequel to other popular television shows? Jesus. I'll get to that stuff in a minute. First, how is this episode in terms of, like, plot and character and such? Nah, not great. The cliffhanger from last time is resolved more or less exactly how you would have expected it to be. Archer gets to the top of the ladder in time and does a thing to stop the thing. The added twist of Archer not being able to save himself is a nice idea, though not all that well executed, but I do appreciate his fuck it, let's just blow my ass out into space escape gambit, as well as the hilarious makeup job they do on Scott Bakula after Archer is retrieved. Dude looks like they just hit him with a can of spray on artificial snow and called it a day. They go to the split between Sung and Malik so early that it feels like it might have been a better idea to end part 2 that way. An unhinged and untethered Malik flying off to do God knows what and leaving Sung behind seems like a better cliffhanger than will Archer climb the ladder fast enough? In my head, at least, for whatever that's worth. After Malik turns on Sung, the main problem with the episode in terms of plot becomes how easy everything is. Sung and the Enterprise crew are presented with obstacles, but the obstacles don't seem very challenging to overcome, and there's never a moment's suspense involving them. Sung gets deposed as leader of the Augments, so Persis helps him sneak down the hall and leave via an escape pod. No problem. The escape pod is immediately picked up by Enterprise. No problem. Enterprise is detected in Klingon space by another Klingon ship, and Archer bluffs his way through. No problem. The Augments are moments away from committing mass murder against a Klingon planet and starting a war between the Klingons and Earth. No problem. Enterprise arrives in the nick of time, takes out the bioweapon, disables the Augments ship with a well-placed shot, and then Malik blows up the ship the rest of the way himself. How convenient! Even Malik's last-second assassination attempt against Sung on the Enterprise feels hilariously pointless. He shows up, grabs Sung, Archer kills him like a second later. Well, I'm sure glad we got to see that. Perhaps you would say, but we needed that final moment between Malik and Sung to drive home Sung's realization that the Augments were truly a lost cause from the beginning. Well, I'm sure glad we got to see such an important moment in the development of a character who's barely even a character and who we're never going to see again anyway. In terms of characters, there's not a whole lot going on either. Malik, not exactly a riveting antagonist to begin with, becomes even more of a generic villain, and by the end, he's only there to do shit that reminds us of Khan's death in Star Trek II. Persis at least has some conflict to her, but she gets killed to remind us that Malik is bad. And Sung, I don't know what the episode expects me to do with him. Am I supposed to pity him? Is he a good guy who was misled by his fascination with the Augments? Is he a bad guy, too squeamish to be really bad? Is he a weasel who just does what he needs to do in order to survive? At various times throughout this episode and the two that precede it, he seems to be all of those things. The one thing he almost never is interesting. Also, what is this episode trying to say with the Augments? Before, it seemed like they were hinting at a kind of Augments as Nazis metaphor, where the point was that the Augments looked down on other people as inferior, and that was bad. But in this episode, there's very little of that, and instead we get Archer saying to Sung, the Augments are evil, that is their nature, they're genetically bad, which isn't a great message. Some people are just born bad is an immoral and fallacious notion, no matter who the source is, but it feels especially wrong coming from the protagonist of a Star Trek series. Besides that, elsewhere in the episode, we see that Archer is wrong. Persis doesn't seem irredeemably evil. She has the same strength and other superior qualities as the others, but she's torn between Malik and Sung, and her reluctance to go along with Malik's mass murder plan eventually gets her killed. And yet, it seems like the lesson Sung is meant to learn throughout this story is, you were wrong about the Augments, they're all bad, some people are just genetically evil. There are ways to use the Augments to make a social or political commentary. Dehumanizing others because you think you're superior to them is wrong is a good message. Ambition unrestrained by morality and compassion leads to horrible things is another. But some people are just born evil? That ain't it. Back to how extra prequel-ish this episode seems, one of the worst parts of current-era Star Trek, and Star Wars and other legacy franchises, it's definitely not just Star Trek, is how compulsively self-referential it is. I like a lot of the new stuff. I found Discovery flawed, but mostly solid and occasionally brilliant. Strange New Worlds has been fantastic so far. Prodigy is an absolute joy. Even Picard had like one really good episode. But good God, even with the shows I like, I am so tired of Star Trek referencing Star Trek. This episode, The Augments, reeks of that. The first two parts of this three-parter have their problems, as I detailed in those reviews, but they mostly avoid gratuitous pandering callbacks to things from other Star Trek shows. Not this time. Garbage Scowl, Khan, Briar Patch, shoving in a call forward to Data at the very end. That barrage of member berries the episode fires at us like Dennis Mitchell wielding his slingshot, combined with the poorly paced, dragged-out plot of these three episodes, makes Enterprise's Augments saga feel like a preview of the worst aspects of modern streaming series. It's another example of Star Trek being ahead of its time, I suppose, but this time I wish that it wasn't. The one saving grace of this episode is that it does finally, occasionally, reach the heights of absurdity that the previous two parts hint toward, but never really approach. The Augment soap opera bits between Malik and Sung and Malik and Persis are ridiculously overwrought, and Archer's frost-covered escape from the ladder tube and Malik's ineffectual attempt to kill Sung at the end are both genuinely hilarious. Even though by more conventional standards, this episode was worse than either of the previous two, it's bad in such an entertaining way that it's a lot more fun to watch, which is something anyway. Is this episode terrible? No, it's not terrible. But in the end, it, along with the Augments trilogy it concludes, does feel arbitrary and unnecessary. Are any of these characters interesting? I don't think so. Are these events that have been depicted compelling? Not really. Is there any creative purpose behind any of this other than keeping Brent Spiner busy for 3 episodes? There doesn't seem to be. I hope at least Brent Spiner got a nice payday. He deserved it. Just like he deserved better material than this. Those are my thoughts on the Augments. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would, if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. That's it for this batch of retro reviews. Please join me next time as I begin a brand new batch of reviews. The theme will be courtroom episodes. I've been looking forward to this one. We kick things off with a review of one of the first Star Trek courtroom episodes from the first season of Star Trek The Original Series. It's a show titled Court Martial. That's next time. See you then. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.